talking about the reloaded Death Note. So we already talked about quite a bunch of the reloaded stuff in the previous video yesterday with Obabo together. And this is just pretty much the full Death Note and showing more pictures of what we haven't seen yet. And maybe they give some extra information. All the way at the end, I'll also have some extra information about the Q&A that we maybe missed because the Q&A translation was kind of off. But I had someone that kind of translated most of the questions. Can't really show all of the notes, but I can give maybe a little bit more answers on that. So that will be all the way at the end of the video. Also, if you haven't yet, like and subscribe as always. But let's look at the reloaded, what's it called, developer notes. So first of all, I'm going to skip through things that we kind of already know, but I think I will address like most of the stuff. So this will actually be patch 8.0, which does make a lot of sense, right? This is like the biggest patch, so that's a new number for a starter. The first update will be on the 30th of June, so that is the Friday, so that's also why they switched the siege starting from Wednesday rather than Thursday. And the second update is planned for late of August, which includes the Dimensional Hall revamp. So that's actually, okay, I kind of expected just another Dimensional Hall, but this is a whole revamp. That's pretty dope, actually. We didn't know that yet. And then the two Living Armors, or no, wait, the two Second Awakenings, Living Armor and Frankenstein. So that's pretty cool that they're also revamping that, I guess. So yeah, what do we have first of all? We have Rift Dungeons now only drop enchants, so those are the Elemental Rift Dungeons. We have the Rift Raid, which is the normal R5, only drops grindstones. And Kairos add a new dungeon where existing runes can be obtained. So those are the runes that were previously, or that would be normally dropped from the Rift Dungeon. So you would farm like the Light Dungeon to get like fight runes and that kind of stuff. Those you also get from the new Kairos Dungeon right now. Key changes for Kairos Dungeon, we have the new Spiritual Realm, which will give a new rune, and then also those runes of the combination runes. So that's fight runes, enhanced runes, determination runes, and that kind of jazz. We will have a seasonal dungeon team will have seasonal dungeons, and therefore we have abyssal floors, and they also change the rules while like how the bosses interact and that kind of stuff. And we have dungeons are back to B12s rather than B10s rather than B12s, and B12 for the current or how currently B12 is should be the next B10. We have the new runes, seal runes and intangible runes. We'll talk about that later. Runes will instantly power up without failure, so it's just one price and then boom, powered up super nicely. They also show for what it is as a standard rune. Normally it also showed legend if it was plus 12. Currently it actually has like a small banner of like what it originally was. They added rune essences to craft 6-star legendary runes, and that's material you get from selling runes. So that's very nice. This is not a crafting material that you can get all kind of nonsense blue runes. 5-star that you don't need to actually get nice stuff. Artifacts are completely gone for upgrading. You get them instantly as plus 15, which is very nice because then you can instantly say like, hey, was this a good triple roll or was this a quad roll or anything like that. And what I used to say in my artifact videos is give everything a try to triple roll. This already does that for you, which is really amazing. So you might have an artifact on a type or a base or a line that totally doesn't really make sense. But because it rolled like a 29%, which is like one of max quad roll, you're like, might as well keep it. And then the next unit is released and you're like, oh my god, this artifact that I got there, that I kept, is so good for it. So that's really nice. They revamped a certain amount of unused properties. They used to have 40 properties. They're going to 33 right now. So that's nice as well. They've removed the restriction that you first had to level a unit to level 35, for example, at a 5-star, and then make it a 6-star, it becomes level 1 again. They removed that you can evolve at any level, so you can go 5-star to 6-star at any level, and you keep the same level if I'm not mistaken. So let's say you level up at level 27, you will be 6-star level 27. They also made a few quality of life changes for power up. Normally you had to feed you had to get 3 stars and those 3 stars to 4 stars, and then your 4-star unit that you want to have, you had to get 4 stars in, and then blah blah blah. You had to go through all of the steps and layers of like the 3 stars first, then the 4 stars, then the 5 stars. Currently you can just feed a whole bunch in, and then you just level it to 6-star, which I think is very chill and also very chill for fusing. Still, however, not going to fuse Xiongfei. Either how. We also have the battle system revamp, so without further ado, let's go more into detail. So this is, as mentioned, what we will have for the Rift Dungeon. So we have the specific beasts giving specific runes, or not the runes, but giving specific enchants. So this is your gems where you get like you can remove one stat and you add that new stat in. They kind of went on a way of removing most of the things, let's say, or splitting up most of the good stats. So you want to farm for Despair, you want to farm for Will, you want to farm for Swift, you want to farm for Vio. There's no dungeon that has all of them or multiple of them. They are in separate dungeons, so you have to farm a little bit of all of them. Definitely, if you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, I will be making guides for these dungeons for sure. And I will also be making a guide to speed that up, because currently mostly this is focused on getting the highest damage as possible, but if you actually want to farm this, you want to farm this as fast as possible. And I think there's a few ways that we can actually speed up this dungeon by itself. Then Rift Raid only drops grind, so you don't no longer have to farm that much raid, you actually have to farm a little bit of this kind of stuff. Raids you still have to do if you want to get those grinds, but also it's easier to get those specific grinds in right now. Would have still liked it that they... Oh, the drop rates of other rewards from Rift of Worlds, such as Rainbow Mons, Mana Stones, will not be changed. Okay, so we still get enough Mana Stones and Rainbow Mons and all of that kind of stuff that we don't really need from raids, but yeah, that is apparently there. But since it is more split up, you can kind of more force focus, saying like, okay, I need that Vio enchant, so I farm the Dark Beast for a while. Something like that. We will see how that works out. And they have it now, yeah, to make it more efficient of farming, so you can kind of more choose what you're farming for. I think this also makes it that you probably do want to buy those gems, especially for Vio and Swift and Will, from the Ancient Shop, because those could be very nice. So what happens to the runes that used to be dropped in the Rift Dungeons, those will be dropped in the new Kairos Dungeon. And then they added the new Kairos Dungeon, which drops the Fight, Determination, Enhance, Accuracy, Tolerance, and then also the new Seal Rune, which we will see later. So that is pretty much what they talk about there. So yeah, they actually fixed everything. That Kairos is for runes, Rift is for, or with Dungeon is for gems, and Rift Raid is for grind stuff. So it's really splitting up those things, like what do you want to farm and how do you want to farm it. New boss, new Kairos Dungeon, Spiritual Realm, and that is also where all of those runes will go to. All of these runes will go to that dungeon. So this is really the team up dungeon. So I think this is actually a very interesting dungeon for early game players to build, because if you can farm this properly, you help all of your other dungeon teams out. So this is definitely something that we would have to look at some point of, okay, can we actually farm this pretty properly at a new account, for example. So let's see, we have the skills from the bosses. Attacks all enemies 2 times, granting Oblivion and decreasing defense. Ooh, that's a strong skill 1, holy shit. Oh wait, that's the skill he uses all the time, because all of the others seems to be passive, okay. Resists harmful effects, okay. And store magic power in the orb whenever the boss is received a non-critical hit. Store up the name. Okay, okay. So you cannot resist harmful effects. So can you actually... Does it only resist harmful effects when you receive a non-critical hit? So that means you have to go in with full critters, because you don't really want to max stack this probably. Attacks all enemies random according to the magic powers. Okay, the more times you do that, then it's going to go for this skill apparently. Stores in the increase their cooldown by 1 with the 20% after boss. Okay, will disappear. Okay, so the moment this is the stacking skill and this is the damage skill, which happens afterwards. All enemies' critical hits becomes half at the start of the battle, but increases by 5% for each beneficial effect granted in the battle. Okay. So the mechanics are actually very straightforward. You want to get as many buffs. You want to have 100% crit rate. If you're missing crits, you're going to stack this one and then it's going to hit you this way. So you want to add as many buffs as possible. So we actually have to look in, maybe there's some perfect AI or very high AI units that will always drop like multiple buffs. You get those multiple buffs in and therefore you start critting again. It is actually half, but you probably a unit with a crit rate buff, thinking about units right away like Seek or... what's it called? Cubescent, those kind of units seem pretty interesting for this boss right away. So that's definitely something we're gonna have to theory craft on. This boss, of course, is being Wind, so Seek already does make a lot of sense. Seek 2A will be very nice. It does grant Oblivion and Deathbreak, so we cannot really use passive units. But I already see like a few potentials on this boss. Just quickly, like I'm just reading this the first time, it's just first thing that came to mind. We'll only have 10s at the start. They will add higher B stuff at the later moment, but currently it's just B10. So we have the Seal Rune. If you haven't seen the thing yesterday, Seal Rune is it will deactivate the set effect of Despair, Vampire, Violent, Nemesis, Revenge, Destroy, and other Seal Runes, apparently. Okay, that's pretty interesting. So if you seal someone, someone cannot seal you again. Sealception. What does this mean? Well, it's on a 15% rate. They said it is going to be similar as Despair for the appliance, so that means that you can strip and Despair. That also means you can strip and seal. It's a 50% chance, so that is not that much. Also, Despair doesn't work on multi-hits, or it doesn't apply multiple times on multi-hits. Therefore, also Seal will probably not apply multiple times on multi-hits. Either how, which kind of units is it good on? Probably some AoE strippers like Clara or that kind of stuff, or units that don't really care about Vio and Swift that much, like Nefties. That could definitely be interesting. Is it necessarily very good? I am not too sure yet, but I feel like, for example, for slow siege battles, let's say a Windy, let's say a Tractor, you kind of go for a Destroy rune, a Revenge rune, and then you have one set in the middle that could be Seal, could be pretty interesting. So that is pretty interesting down the line. Then again, betting on the 15% to land is not that nice. It just makes something more safe or more solid if it does land. I think it will be something like that. So they are going to add seasonal changes to the dungeons every 6-month cycles. They will go for a new dungeon. What that means is not like, okay, we're going to address everything right now, and then 6 months down the line, we're going to address everything again. What I think they do, if I didn't misunderstand it, they're addressing giants and dragons right now, Necro next month, and then blah, 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 everything else next month. And then once the full cycle is done, we go back to, okay, giants in 6 months. In 7 months, we go for Necro again. In 8 months, we will go for whatever came after that again. So every month, they actually add in something new, which I think is very cool. That is a lot of content for me to make because I can theory craft on all of those dungeons. There's always something new. There's always a new dungeon, new rule, whatever. Sometimes, yeah, there's just a lot of variety in teams. And definitely, once again, if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel because I'm making a whole bunch of content on, let's say, if you don't want to theory craft anything, or you want to theory craft with me, or want to see my kind of work, and then maybe you get an idea based on my work, and then you get a better team than me, and based on that, I get another idea. Can work together like that. Super dope. So I'm very hyped. I'm very stoked for that one. So yeah, definitely keep your eye out for those. Like, I'm going to be streaming when the update hits. I'm definitely going to be streaming, going to be farming those. I'm already going to be theory crafting based on this kind of information that we have over here, seeing, okay, what makes sense to hit those things on Abyss normal and Abyss hard. Can I also maybe make like, okay, of course, you kind of know me, I'm gonna make teams with like crazy runes, that's how I'm gonna farm, but I also try to tune it down like 3-4 notches to see like, okay, can I make a sense-making, farmable, efficient team that doesn't fail, but still is fast for like some lower rune qualities like that. So that's definitely something that I will look at. I'm not sure if they already mentioned it here, but you cannot use duplicates of units in the abyssal stages, which also then does mean that no Trikarus, no double Melias, no kinds of that kind of stuff. They also changed that B12s, because B12 is becoming B10, will actually have 8 cost again. I think B10s, I'm not sure if they actually reduced the stages then again as well. So yeah, B10s will have the same rewards as the existing B12s, but does it actually become that B10 still has the stats of B10 because they have the 8 mana or the 8 energy cost and level 65? So it actually, if you cannot farm these two, it would be very easy to farm B10s to get towards like the abyssal stage. That's pretty nice too. So okay, what do we have here? Will be enhanced every season. So that's pretty nice. Will it be enhanced or changed? Because enhancing is improving, changing is just changing. But interesting. So what do we have over here that is the current Giant's Keep? Okay, we have on the left, right side. Okay, we have on the right. The only thing they actually changed on this, we counter everyone. So instead of like slapping one unit, he's gonna backhand your whole team. That's pretty cool. We also have that the Giant slams 7 attacks. Okay. Apply. Okay, and okay, that seems stronger. That seems stronger. And then we have the thing for the dragon, because dragon is also addressed right now. It will have 2 continuous damage rather than 1. Haha, immunity. But okay, we will see. Of course, the reward should be improved and boss getting stronger every season. Okay, so they're actually getting stronger every season. That's pretty cool. So it's not necessarily changing, it is enhancing, it is getting better. So therefore also the drop chances are getting better and better, I guess. Um, that is pretty cool. A special reward can be obtained. Okay, so yeah, and those special rewards will be this new intangible rune. Intangible rune will actually be a rune where you can have one broken set to be a completed set. So let's say you have two will runes, you have three fire runes, you add intangible rune, you'll have those four set also completed. From what I actually heard later on, is okay. They have a few examples here, and they also clarified that in the Q&A. Is not that you can say like, okay, I have a three set, I have a one set, I add in intangible. Intangible doesn't know what it's going to improve on. So intangible only works if you have one broken set and not two broken sets. So for example here, 4 Vio, 1 wheel, intangible, Vio wheel. Or you have 3 and 2, and so this one is already completed, so you need already one completed set. Or in this case, you have already two completed sets, but the third one not, and then it's intangible, and then you get the triple guard. So it's very nice that they give this overview because, well, otherwise it would be kind of messy for people to understand. So this overview kind of makes sense. That if you have two broken sets or more than two broken sets, intangible doesn't add anything. Does make sense, because otherwise it also gets very messy for the system and everything to see like, okay, where should it go on? Do you select it or whatever? No, it just doesn't work. And then also it means, let's say you have 5 different runes of different types, one intangible rune, you don't get like 10 rune sets right away or some stupid shit. Intangible runes are, oh yeah, you also get the grinds and immemorials. Wait, enchanting is only possible with grindstones and immemorials. Okay, you can use immemorials on intangibles. That is pretty interesting. But you get those from the Rift dungeons and raids with a respectively low rate. So those are rare, but also those runes are pretty rare and they're only going to drop from Abyss. We are going to get Abyss for the ancient or for the artifact dungeons as well. And if I'm not mistaken, artifact dungeons will therefore also drop this rune. So you can still kind of rune farm while doing artifact dungeons, which I think is kind of nice. Okay, so I think intangible runes are not super OP. They will be very useful over time. If you get a super nice one over time, it will be very nice. So they also put in the seal one in the Rift dungeon, and then we have this one. Intangible only drop from level 5. Okay, that totally makes sense. The intangible is excluded over there. So what we have over there, we have intangibles added for those. Okay, so the update in July we will get Necropolis, which is next month, and the Spiritual Realm will get a Abyssal Floor in August, which will be the month after. And they already mentioned that the month after that is SF10, and the month after that is PC10. So that's pretty interesting as well. I'm very curious about SF10, like how that's going to work, because that dungeon is a bitch. So yeah, this is the seasonal guide. So we have this actually running. You can actually check the dates yourself of how long this is running. But that's pretty nice. You also do really want to focus on those triple S's in the Rift dungeons if you haven't yet. Definitely would need to work on those if you haven't yet. But those are not that hard to get triple S's on, I would say. Okay, what do we have over here? You cannot use the same monster and you cannot use a friend or a mentor. Okay, that's pretty cool. Is there anything useful over here? No, it's just a new deck every time and you have to revamp the Kyle's dungeon. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I think it's definitely pretty cool. I'm also very curious because they didn't necessarily mention like, okay, what is the drop rates for like hero runes to legendary runes, because it's still dropping blue runes as well, 6-star. But what are the rates? Maybe does it give like 4-star rainbow mons right away, or does it not give much mana, or does it give more mystical scrolls? All of that kind of stuff. They didn't necessarily mention it, but that is something that would be interesting to check out. So that's definitely something the first few weeks that data goes to Swarfarm. I will make a video on that, comparing the B10 to the normal to the Heart of the Abyss, seeing like, okay, what is a drop change in there for how that works. So then we go into the rune power-up system. As mentioned before, runes cannot fail anymore. Therefore, you can just say, okay, I want to upgrade it to 3, 6, 9. Well, you can also upgrade it to whatever you have, but you have buttons to upgrade it instantly. And these are the costs. So if you want to go straight away from 0 to 15, it's 1.15 mil. If you want to go from 12 to 15, it's a 700 cost for 6 stars. So this all combined is like a 1.50 mil or something. I guess so. I think this is very nice. It is slightly more expensive than the average of what it used to be. I think it cost you an average for a 0 to 15 about 800k to 900k, if I'm not mistaken, on average. We have these runes that cost like 3 mil mana and that kind of stuff. But you no longer have that. You just have a fixed number right now, which is 1.15, which is slightly higher. However, you're going to be spending less mana on your, what's it called? Artifacts, and therefore you save a bunch of mana, so I don't think it is an issue. Plus, we probably get a higher drop rate, maybe even a higher mana return from the new dungeon, so it is not that much of an issue. We also now see that, okay, we have a legendary looking rune, but it's stated at hero. You could have still checked it from power up and then or to re-up it, but this is just an easier way, and it also makes you less likely to accidentally re-up a hero rune, I would say. They also added new material, which is legendary crafting material. I am not sure. I hope they do show it here. If we can select what kind of rune do we craft. I actually don't think so. Wait, let me actually go into the game right now. Because I think the button of crafting it is, it looks unclickable the moment you didn't select the specific rune. In this case, it goes for a question mark rune, and I'm actually opening that right now. If I don't, yeah, this is the thing. So if I don't select the rune, I'm not sure if you can see it. If I don't select the rune, I cannot press craft until I selected the rune. And then it says like you can craft it. So this means most likely, probably I could read it somewhere, but I just figured it out, whatever. This will craft a random rune. So this could craft probably every kind of runes. So we will need 100 of those essences to craft one legendary. It is a legendary 6-star, but that is pretty nice because you also get that material from selling any rune pretty much. So that is pretty nice too. Well, there's a chance for rare plus, and for legendary selling you have a guaranteed chance of that. So you will be crafting all kinds of random runes, which I think technically is not a bad thing. Because from what I've noticed, I haven't been farming dragons for like ages. I haven't been farming necro for pretty long as well. I start getting a lot of grinds and gems that I cannot really use because I'm not farming those dungeons. Legendary craft is going to give me random runes that I maybe want to throw those grinds and gems on to also not super overfill my gems and grind box in general. So I think this is pretty nice. Then we also have a revamp for the artifact system. Artifacts now drop as plus 15. As I mentioned before, this is super nice. As I mentioned before in other videos in my artifact guide, do give everything a chance to triple roll. Do give everything a chance to quad roll. Here you can right away see it takes you no effort. You can right away see like, okay, we have a fire, we have HP type, we have 13 dark, we have some extra crit damage and stuff. Actually not a bad roll, because this is probably you can click on it and then also see how it rolled, but this is a 2 of max, this is a 3 of max. It is not the best for it being HP type. If it was attack type would have been better, but I would probably keep this stuff. And therefore it is a lot easier to determine whether you keep or sell your artifacts. The price of course went down. It's not that you're selling a full priced artifact anymore. But yeah, if you click on it, it actually does show like how did it roll. And it rolled a 5 and a 4, or well, doesn't matter how it rolled, double 5 and a 3, and this one, whatever, how it gets to 15. But you can see that there's pretty decent rolls on it. So right away you can see like, okay, how did it roll? I think that is very, very nice. I'm not sure what convert, what does convert mean? You can convert the sub-properties. Where's the button for just saying like, okay, I want to keep? Like, it's sell or convert. No, I just want to keep the rune. Like, I don't have to convert it right away. Also for the old artifacts, the artifacts look actually kind of different. I'm not sure what they... Wait, do they mention it somewhere? Okay, so the... okay, so convert shows you... Okay, that's just the process of like how you want to up stuff or something. I don't entirely know. I guess you gotta convert it first and then press OK and then you keep or something. That's totally fine. All of your old artifacts, so that also does mean do not up any artifact until this patch hits, because you're able to refine your artifact, and with refining artifacts you immediately get your artifact to plus 15, and that's just pretty chill. That saves a lot of stuff. Okay, I think all of the artifacts that are not done yet, they look like this, and then you can refine them or something. Not entirely sure what that is. You can also select all and then refine all. Thank you, Comtoas, for that part making a lot of sense. That's very good. That's very good. Then they also removed and combined a few lines that are underused. The lines that are removed are the HP on revived, attack bar on revived, and then also the attack, defense, speed proportional to lost HP. They noticed in their statistics and stats that these were very underused. I think these were very underrated. Especially speed by lost HP. My Verde heal was stacking 100% on that. My Tetra, my Molly, my Raccoon, all of those units were stacking that speed by lost HP. My Susano was. My Douglas was stacking attack by lost proportional, that kind of stuff. So I think, not entirely sure if removing those were the worst. I think they were just rather underused rather than not good. So that could be a thing, I don't exactly know, but those are removed. You cannot get them as a drop anymore. However, all of the old artifacts that you have will still have those lines in there. So I definitely do value those lines that were in there. They also changed a few of those where they had a few things that they combined rather than removed. So counterattack and... Oh, wait, did they actually up the rates? No, rates are still the same. I was for a second thinking that they up these numbers as well, but no, the numbers are still the same. So they have counterattack and attacking together is now one line. We have attack increasing effect, defense increasing effect is now one line. Crit damage 3 and crit damage 4 is now one line. That is very good because crit damage 4 in most cases was just absolutely garbage. These two lines, there's not too many units that scale heavily from both HP and defense and also have that at both times. However, you can think of a copper scales with attack and defense, and then you just throw a mega next to it. You cannot really a Majesty next to it then, but still there's some pretty nice things to it. They also added in a new line, and I'm not entirely sure. I hope they kind of explain how that works in here. First attack, crit damage. Okay, that could be one of a few things. That could be your first hit of a multi-hit. So let's say you have a Marcia S2, it hit once, and then a second hit, so it only crit damage hires on the first hit. It is a 4 to 6 line, which is the same thing as the crit damage skill, like specific skill number. But this also could be first skill crit damage. Is this your first skill you throw at the start of the battle? So for example, Lucian. Lucian amputation magic skill 3. That is the first attack on the battle, and therefore you do that. So it's kind of a weird naming of first attack crit damage. I think first attack crit damage. It could also be the first skill. Now that wouldn't make any sense. They already have that. So it could be one of the two. The first attack in the battle or the first hit on any attack. I think it's going to be the second one, and therefore you want to put it on units that do not have multi-hits. But I think it's a pretty nice one. It's good for example, like the Dragon Knights. It's good for, well, name a whole bunch of units. Plus, this seemingly also works all the time, which is not necessarily stated it is or it's not. Because the single target crit damage 1 that we have also says only on your turn. So it doesn't work on counters. Does this work on counters? Because then it's even more useful on the Leica. So those are pretty useful things to know and to check what that is. Then we also have the, conversion stones. And now you have to use conversion stones and mana. Okay, that's slightly strange. Wait, let's see what this is. Conversion stones and artifacts that change to 2000s. Okay. Mana stones will be used for the burn. Okay. So wait, this is the conversion count. So that is how many times that you're retrying to get a correct line. Now it costs a lot less, or quite a bunch less of those conversion stones, because I think one of my most expensive is around, like, I think it's probably 35 or something. No, I might actually have somewhere. I never noticed that there was a cap to it. That far I didn't go, but at some point after 10 you're spending a lot of mana on that. Personally, for me, having 4 bill mana, very good update. Absolutely insane update. Because at some point you're just like, I need this additional damage by speed on this specific line. I need it. Crying on the floor like a kid and not getting his candy in the grocery store, right? If you do it like this is expensive as fuck. But this is actually pretty nice. Like, I can spend 1 mil manas all day. I could give a crap. Well, let's say I do this 4,000 times, I'm broke, but it gives me an idea of, like, okay, I can actually manage that. So I am liking this update. This is actually something we didn't hear during the broadcast itself. So that is definitely nice. So that's actually pretty cool that it's costing mana right now. Another thing which is super amazing, we're getting extra rune gems and grinds and artifact slots. Rune slots 100 more, gems and grindstones 500 more, decent amount. Rune slots 100 more, but I can still store a lot of runes on other units, so I'm kind of fine with that. Artifacts 300 more. That is absolutely needed. So definitely those artifact slots, 300 more, is going to draw more people towards farming artifacts. Plus they're plus 15 already. Plus you have this kind of stuff to finish off your artifact in the perfect way. Very good for artifacts. So with all of that done, that seems pretty nice. I like it. So then going on with monsters no longer need to be reaching max level to be evolved. As I mentioned before, you're level 27, just 6-star. You already can. That's super chill. It also doesn't reset after evolving. So you don't go for level 26 and or 27 and then you evolve and then you're back to level 1. No. You stay level 27. Super chill. That also does mean that if you want to use your Super Angelmon, you first have to 6-star it, and then at levels of 1 you want to use your Super Angelmon. You don't want to level 35 it and then make it 6-star and then you only have a Super Angelmon for 5 levels. So that's something you have to keep in mind. A little bit of different mindset, but I think it's very good. Also, it does mean that your Super Angelmon will level 1 to 40, like complete the unit. Like it's done. You don't have to do any leveling else than the Super Angelmon, which also means Super Angelmon has more value. You just have to make it better for use. Okay, wait. The experience required has been changed. Okay. You no longer have the process for leveling up from 1. Okay. Oh, they increased the value that you need for a level 40. That makes sense. That makes sense. Battle experience acquired method has changed. Okay. Oh, this is actually good as well. So normally if you were farming with a certain farmer, let's say you had your Lapis, if you're a beginner, you had your Lapis and it was farming for your team, but Lapis was still getting EXP even though being max level. Currently, if something is max level, it's just giving EXP to something else. That also very much means dimensional hole, with the dimensional hole or the dimensional rift, whatever the thing was called, where you get a lot of EXP. I was always doing that with the unit that was trying to level and then throwing on like a very good vampire set so it could solo it. Currently, I can just put a Alicia next to it or another good like AoE damage dealer, clear that super easily. That unit is already max level, so it doesn't take any EXP, and all of that EXP goes to the other units. That's super chill. That's also something we haven't heard yesterday. Very, very nice. We also have this thing right now where you can just add in infinite amount of units and you can just power them up, but also evolve them here. I am still not entirely sure how the evolving works because they say that you don't have to go through layers of first making all of your 5-stars and then your 5-star can go into your 5-star unit that becomes 6-star. Apparently you can feed in a whole bunch of stuff that is equal to a certain level, threshold, number, EXP bar, whatever, and then it just evolves from 5 to 6 right away by just adding in a bunch of like 3-stars and a bunch of like 3-stars level 1, 3-stars level 25, and all of the kind of good stuff. It just adds a number to it, and at some point it's like, okay, you filled the bar and you can just evolve it right away. But this is also super chill because every time you were putting in like 5, like I have way too many rainbow mons, totally don't need that stuff. I was putting in 5 and then another 5 and then another 5 and it just takes forever. Now I can just say like, feed all my rainbow mons. All of my rainbow mons are gone, all of them are gone. So that is very nice. And then people can say, oh, rip my free-to-play eyes, why are you feeding all your rainbow mons just to level up a unit? But that's what I do. So yeah, that does make a lot of sense and that is very chill. We also have a few battle logic systems that will be changed. Okay, and that's mainly towards, oh yeah, that's the thing, I explained it before yesterday as well. I'm not going to dive that much into it. But you had a few units where they get an additional turn, but an additional turn without full attack bar. And then if the other interaction of another unit happened at that moment, therefore the turn will be cancelled out. In this case, all of the units will be on the same logic. If you get an additional turn, your additional turn will always have a full attack bar with it. So that's pretty nice. They also changed the absorbing logic. And the absorbing logic would be, whereas, oh, they also changed the units already. Ooh, interesting to look at that. But the absorbing logic, everyone gets the Oliver treatment. And the Oliver treatment, okay, they actually do it for some. They just boost it up if they have 0. That's pretty cool. But okay, back to it. Oliver logic. Oliver was draining 100% attack bar when the enemy had no attack bar, right? And they changed that to like, okay, your enemy that you're hitting has 37% attack bar. All of you use S3, tries to go for 100%, can only absorb 37, and therefore he gets 37 attack bar. Makes a lot of sense. That already happened back in the days. Agar used to go for 2 hits of 50%, and then the unit was at 0 twice, and then you're like, I'm full attack bar. Doesn't make any sense. Now they say, okay, we can only drain as much that we actually hit on for the enemy. But however, some of those units get a nerf which they didn't really deserve. For example, Cadiz, the Dark Vampire, really needed those Vampire runes, because Vampire runes, if he countered someone, countering always means that your enemy has 0 attack bar, because the enemy is hitting them on your turn. They have 0 attack bar, you counter them, you're hitting on a 0 attack bar, 100% guaranteed when you counter them. But he still really liked those Vampire Revenge runes. But he couldn't drain anymore after this thing, so therefore they said, like, okay, increase your attack bar by 20% if the enemy has attack bar of 0 when attacking. In other words, if you counter, you hit twice, you get 40 attack bar for just countering. So actually, Cadiz, triple revenge, gaining 40% attack bar. That's nasty. That is nasty. Then we have the Unicorn, which is called Helena, human form. Absorbs the attack bar by 50%. Okay. Decrease the attack bar by 25%. Okay. Not really sure. This is an effect change, so rather than like a conditional thing, it will always decrease by 25. Okay, I'm not really sure whether that's a better thing or a worse thing. We have Antares getting a straight up buff of, rather than absorbing 15%, absorbing 25%. That is a nasty buff for Antares. Like, trust me, you're gonna drop at least 15 to 25% accuracy in your Antares right now, because if he's absorbing that on a multi-hit, I'm not sure if it is 100% rate, but that is a lot of attack bar absorbing that Antares can do. Holy, that is pretty freaking strong. So then we have the water, fire, and the dark beast rider on their S2. Their S2 was the hit where they hit once, armor breaks, and then absorb for how many debuffs were there. We decrease the attack bar by 25% and increase your attack bar by 25% up to 100%. Okay, so you don't absorb anymore, you just fully increase. Okay, that is pretty nice. So you always decrease 25% and you increase by 25% up to 100. And I think that's per amount of debuffs. So if there is 4 debuffs on the enemy, you don't even need to absorb anymore. You always increase to a full attack bar. That is definitely not bad. That's a good boost for definitely Masha, Barbara, and Sienna. That's pretty interesting. So this one we have an added effect rather than a changed effect. Increase your attack bar by 25% if glancing hits do not occur when attacking on your turn. Whoa. So if you do not glance, you get full attack bar anyway. Wow, wait, that makes Belenus great. So if Belenus doesn't glance, he gets full attack bar? And that's very strong. Wow, that's actually very strong. Plus, it is on the passive, so does it also work on the S1? Okay, this might make Belenus insanely strong, actually. Wow, that's pretty interesting. So they also changed an effect where Despair now always activates on the first hit regarding of landing a glancing hit. That does mean that all of the units that are already very good on Despair are pretty much not changed, except for the effect of where if you glance in your first hit on a Moor, this is going to be so much explaining. Your Moor can glance on its first hit, but still strip and then stun on the second hit. Whereas if it usually said like, okay, I strip on the second hit, I can still Despair on the third hit. Currently, that is no longer possible. Like, sure, of course, if you hit 3 times, your Despair rate is still 25%. However, it can apply throughout a different moment. With this, it only applies on the first moment. So let's say you don't strip on the first hit and you do Despair, but you strip on the second hit, there's no more chance to Despair. So those are a little bit of change in there, but every other unit right now that just has a single target hit will not care about Despair. That also does mean a Moor S1 is as likely to stun a Dominic S1 as it is to stun a name any unit, a Miles S1. Because you don't give a shit about glancing anymore. So you can actually hit wrong elements on Despair. And I think that will actually enable a bunch of units to be more Despair focused. And I think that's pretty strong for Despair in general. We also have all crushing hit units removed, so they already removed it from the Brownie Magician. So for example, Orion S2, Gemini S2, those used to be crushing hits. Currently, they changed that, and they also addressed the other units that still had crushing hits, aka the Death Knights. Death Knights RS2 now do damage proportional to HP. That actually does make Arnold a pretty interesting unit, because Arnold S3 is already a proportional hitter to HP. If the S2 now also hits proportional to HP, I think Arnold might become one of those units that will shine for 4-star Siege. Now we have damage adjusted. So we have for Lure S3 used to go for a glancing hit. Now you can actually I think the damage multiplier was pretty decent on it already. Now it can crit. It no longer lands glancing hit. And they adjusted the damage. So they did adjust the damage, and also for the S2, which was arrest, same for the light one. We also have the Wind Inferno. I think no one lands that, and now it always crits. Okay, totally fine. They also fixed some things with like the zoom in crit animation, that certain things that if you zoom in, you have like a different order of things hitting. And then with Triana, it sometimes messes up the interaction of like, okay, did unit A die first or did unit B die first? And you get like some kind of weird stuff. They do have some issues with the crit animation, and I think a lot of people would enjoy it if they remove it anyways. But they still really do like to showcase the skins and all of that kind of stuff, which also do make sense. Like the zoom in animation do feel you more attracted to the game in a certain way. So that is all there is to the Death Note. I kind of expected to make a short video, but I didn't. 41 minutes. And we're not even done yet, because I also have a bunch of things from the Q&A which I want to talk about. So yeah, that is all about it. We also have a bunch of coupon codes. I think they are available until the 30th of July. So not even June, 30th of July, which is very nice. So definitely get those in, because you get an all attribute. That's very nice. And Delmons, always nice. And these kind of things, always nice. And mystical scrolls. We care less about these days. But the other things are very nice, and of course you're going to pick up those as well. We will have another Death Note for the Dimensional Hall revamp. So it's not just adding one, it's a revamp, as mentioned before. And then also for Living Armor, and then the Frankenstein's Too Bad No Drunken Masters 2As. Then I also have a little bit more information on the Q&A, which I'll just read from the notes that I have and then give the answers on that. So I will just focus on the things that I didn't give a clear answer on that they talked about. They asked a question about Guardians and Conquerors. There's a very high gap between those tiers in RTA. And they actually did mention that they were actually discussing about, because of that being mentioned, they are going to think about like, okay, is the Guardian and the Conqueror tiers, does there need to be like any in-betweener tier or something like that? They do also mention specifically that seal runes, for example, if you have 3 times revenge runes, it's that 3 times meaning 45, or is that 37.5 or something like that. They actually did mention it for seal right away. If you have 3 seal runes, it will be 45%. 3 seal sets, it will be 45%. 2 seal sets will be 30%, and 1 seal set is 15% of landing. So that part is interesting to know as well. They also did mention a thing about like, okay, if you add these additional dungeons, will you at some point not everyone still be using the same team over and over of whatever anyone, maybe me, is making as a team? They said like, yeah, probably kind of, but they also expect it to have people like a fresh start of like trying out things. They really want to encourage people to try out things and then see how it goes from there. And that's also the thing, like I think the more people try out certain things, like in the end, I made a team for PC 10 about 3 years ago, and I upgraded that team about 2 months ago. That is mainly because everyone was pretty much not trying to make a better team. And I think this Abyssal Dungeon style attracts a lot more people to try to make better teams rather than just copying whatever is already there. And I think a lot of people could have figured out that team that I made like 2 months ago, but they simply didn't because they just copied what was already there, which in a sense is nothing wrong with, but they kind of want to try to attract people to get those teams or to work on those teams as well. They also asked for what's the criteria for selecting units for balance matching. And fun fact, which actually makes a lot of sense, is they just look at win rates. So if something has a very high win rate, of course, it has certain criteria, and that it's not that they're saying like, okay, the lowest win rate unit and the highest win rate unit, we're going to for sure address those. But if something is winning too much and is very strong, then that is definitely going to be nerfed. That also means that if I make a tier list, I put a unit at the top tier. That is there because A, I think it's a good unit, but B, it also has a high win rate. I am pretty much statistical biased to where I say if a unit has a high win rate, it is probably good. You can say like, yeah, but it has a lot of factors to it. Hey, it is winning. And winning means that it's doing something good. And if it's losing, it's probably doing something bad. Or being overspammed or being whatever. Like there's reasons to it, like, oh, it's being used too little. Sure, then it has high win rate, doesn't matter. But if it's used a lot and has a high win rate, that is a good unit. And actually, Countless looks at the balance changes for, at least for the nerfs, also kind of like these things. Also for the buffs, somewhere around those things as well. There was also a question about 4-star Devilmons. They gave a very lengthy answer of pretty much saying, well, I'm kind of summing it up. There is a very long answer to it of like how they actually reply to it. But from my words, or their words translated to my words, so these are my words, not theirs, the game will become too easy. So they have a lot of reasons of saying like, okay, it's a collector and we want to not like make things too easy, and we want to have like, that we give other ways around to give like selection units of 4 stars and blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. In a sense, what they are saying, they don't want to make the game too easy. I somewhat disagree because 4 stars, to be honest, like if you start the game fresh before you have your Galleon and your Lucian scaled up, if you do not use normal Devilmons, it's gonna take you pretty much half a year to a year, which I think is too long for people to catch up on the 4 stars, and therefore people just don't. It's literally easier to get a second Awaken max skilled by Dimensional Hole energy feeding into getting duplicates, or getting Devilmons to max skill a 5-star than it is to max skill a 4-star you don't have the units of. So that is definitely something. They also did mention in the Q&A that they were asking about the revamp of the Rainbowmon system, because a lot of players like me that are stacking or farming a lot don't really use too much of the material of the Rainbowmons. They are stacking 999 Rainbowmons. They are actually going to increase the storage to 9,999. At least they mentioned that. I don't think it will be in this patch right away because it is not in the notes. I kind of expected it to be in the notes, but that is apparently what they mentioned in the Q&A. There was also a question, what is the drop rate increase between the B12s right now and the Abyssal Heart, for example? And they said that they are pretty much increasing the drop rates drastically by quite some. However, what does that mean? They didn't really give a clear answer to, saying like, okay, we have X numbers going up or anything like that. Not really anything specifically saying, but they did say that they pretty much upped that quite drastically. They also did mention you cannot re-up any of the intangible runes. You can also not buy any of the intangible runes, which I think makes a lot of sense and is very fair. There was, of course, also a question about 2v2s and smaller tournaments. They did mention that they like to use 2v2s for smaller tournaments, but they're not thinking about anything SWC big related, at least from what I'm seeing here. Again, these are my words, not specifically their words, but they're saying like, okay, 2v2s is more for like the side tournament things or like a showcase match rather than a specific tournament at the current moment. So they're not really focused too much on 2v2, it seems. Or at least to implement it as a real SWC thing. There was also a question about lacking the amount of Dimensional Hole energies, that it takes too long to recharge it. They are saying like, okay, in August, check out that Death Note then, because they are going to revamp Dimensional Hole. So it is a lot more than just adding one Dimensional Hole. So I'm pretty curious to see about that. There was also a question about World Guild Battle. Are they planning to put it seasonal or change any rewards? They pretty much said they had it under discussion. Like that, they have like a somewhat lengthy answer, but it's more or less just saying like, okay, it's under discussion. And actually being under discussion does mean quite well for Countless, because at some point things like auto farming was under discussion and they actually implemented it. So most things under discussion actually do mean that it will get into the game. There was also a pretty good question about flat stats. So 2, 4, 6s giving flat stats. Do they want to remove them? They gave a pretty lengthy answer as well, but simply said, in my words, from what I understood from them, if they would remove that, the game would be too easy. And it would be too easy to farm those kind of things, so they kind of want to keep them in. So otherwise, it gets too easy to get like the good 4 stars and 6 stars and 2 stars too easily. That's pretty much the thing. There was a question saying, why is the game so much fun? The reply, thank you. Like, I'm not sure who wrote this, but I got it from someone that can read Korean and can translate it and that kind of stuff. That's pretty funny. Another question was about separate runes saving for Special League. So currently when we have the Special League, we want to save all of our runes, and then at the end of Special League, we want to set that back. That is something that they pretty much, they gave a pretty lengthy answer again, but down the line they actually said, we will probably try to implement that as well, because we can understand that it has substantial usage for a lot of people, but something that was not really on the board at the moment for them to. They also gave a question about housing system and decorating your island extra, and that is something they also have under discussion. They don't necessarily really know like what they want to do with it and what kind of approach they want to take on it, but they are considering something like housing or upgrading like your island and making that more personalized and that kind of stuff. So that part is pretty nice. There was a question about TOA for saying like, okay, can we minimize the amount of TOA that we have to do? Personally, I don't really care about TOA. It's just on the release date of TOA. Half a day, you just farm it. You just, every 10 stages, you press another 10 stage, you go for it. It's pretty easy to just do right now, right away. But people were like, okay, you still have to look at the screen. Can you not make it like every 10th stage or something like that? So yeah, currently they say like, hey, we already added the repeats. We already added so many things to it. So it's not really on the menu right now that they think about like changing it. So they're not really thinking about it, changing that right now, but could be something down the line that also could definitely happen. They also had a question about glory towers. Taking glory towers all the way to max still takes a lot of time. And I think they pretty much said like, okay, we're gonna keep it as is. I don't really mind it if they slow or like they make it slightly easier or just half the price, I don't know. But it's something for people to catch up. So catching up is, I think, very important for getting new players in. So I think it is not a bad thing. Same for 4-star Delphamon, same for the Glory Towers. I think it personally, it wouldn't be bad if they actually just lower those requirements and get it in easier. There was also a question of lack of units in siege defense. And they gave a very long answer of also like about AI. So the siege AI, of course, is not perfect and that kind of stuff. They gave a pretty long answer to it, but it is something that they are thinking about, of saying like a certain AI for the first turn, maybe. So that this is really like a maybe thing, but maybe that you can set up like, okay, a first turn AI that you can always say like, hey, my Triton always uses S3. That would, if they would add something like that, that would be a really drastic change to pretty much everything that is AI related, arena defense, siege defense, all of that kind of stuff. Personally, I would like it because I feel like siege offense and also arena offense became too easy. You can craft and create the exact counter to everything on the field of the enemy and then counter it that way, and therefore the high-end guilds are getting 95 to 98% win rates. That is really insane. If you at least can say like, okay, I want to have a certain unit, like why for example is Clara good on siege defense? You always know she's going to use S3 if she's not been already hit. So for those kind of reasons, I think it's very nice if they would look into like, okay, we can say like, okay, what kind of skill should the unit use at least on the first turn? Like not throughout the whole match, if it's up, use it. No, just the first turn, what skill should it always aim for using? I think that would be a very nice addition. But this is also something that they mentioned, like they gave a very long answer. It's very much on the discussion. They tried out a lot of things. They think about a lot of things. That's also one of the reasons why they don't want to remove multiple Vio procs from arena defense and siege defense, because it is already, especially on the top end guilds, it's already too easy to get very high win rates because you can have all the cards in your hand to craft something that is better than the enemy defense, plus you are probably smarter than the AI. So for those reasons, I think it's very nice if they start boosting defense to a certain degree, which is pretty interesting, which also makes it to the end of what I have for the notes on all of those. So sorry I couldn't show anything of it, but those were some interesting answers right there. Maybe you heard a few extra things. We have a lot of the information in the dev notes, so I'm super hyped for the update. I hope it hits at a pretty decent time for me on the Friday, because this is going to be live on the 30th of June, which is going to be the next Friday. I will definitely be streaming, so hope to see you there in my stream. I hope you enjoyed this video, and see you in the next one.